Kentaro Miura worries that those who fight the darkness might become the darkness. I discuss this and more on today's episode. Welcome back to Around the Weird, a booktube channel where I talk about all the unusual and out of the ordinary literature that I've found in my travels. And today I want to talk about some manga that I found that I've been reading. I am back on that manga grind, returning to a series that I've been exploring and that I consider to be one of the greatest stories in fiction. I am referring to Berserk, Volume 14, which is published or written by Kentaro Miura and published around 1997. I've talked about Kentaro Miura on this channel before, so if you want more details, make sure to check out Berserk Volume 1 or any other volume of Berserk where I go into some detail about who he was. But he was a manga writer, and he wrote Berserk and other series, and he died in 2019-ish, thereabouts. He had a hand in writing the TV show as well as a video game for this, and I recently watched the TV show for the 1997 Berserk anime, which covers the Golden Age arc, which I just finished. And I think it's similarly good. It has an interesting art style, and it pretty much follows the Berserk comic or the manga, which is very important because it's a great story, and if you deviate at all, you might add a few details that are contrary to what Miura is trying to say. So very much in love with this series as well as the anime, and I can't wait to finish both of them. So without further ado, let's talk about Volume 14 of Berserk. I will do a summary, a little bit of analysis, and we will move on from there. So Berserk Volume 14 picks up where 13 left off after the betrayal of Griffith and the decimation of the Band of the Hawks. Guts is out fighting demons when he comes across the Skeleton Knight, who warns him that Casca might be in trouble. And so Guts and the Skeleton Knight race to Casca, where they find her kind of standing in a meadow of sorts. And it's there that she gives birth to a demon baby. The Skeleton Knight says that because Griffith raped her, he influenced the what happened to this baby, and it's explicitly said that this is Guts's child. That Guts and Casca had a baby because of their sexual encounters. I'm describing how sex is how reproduction happens at this point. Weird, but unfortunately, the baby kind of fades away, the demon baby, and the Skeleton Knight notes that it's sort of gone to the realm where other dead things kind of reside. Maybe Guts might be reunited with his child in the future. I don't really know, but this is an unfortunate event and makes Griffith even worse for doing what he did. Guts, Casca, and others are hanging out, kind of hiding from the demons, and they're hanging in the home of the blacksmith that Guts met a few volumes previously. And Rickert wants to know more about this large sword that the blacksmith has, and this blacksmith says that it's a dragon slayer sword that a noble wanted but never paid for, and so it's kind of just hanging around his house now. And Guts tries to get close to Casca again, but she's still deeply upset, mainly because she doesn't remember who the Band of the Hawk or Guts are, and she feels awful all the time. Guts then finds himself pursued by a demon. It's arrived at this blacksmith's house, and it's smelled him out and it wants a sacrifice. It's following his brand that's on his neck. And Guts fights it with a regular sword, which breaks, but then Guts manages to find the Dragon Slayer sword and just annihilates the demon with it, and he's happy and is willing to use this sword. The story then sort of flashes back, I think, to a point where the Holy Knights, a band of fighters, come across a red lake, which seems to be the remnants of the Eclipse, of the Band of the Hawk. I don't really know what's going on there. The story then shifts to a couple years later, and there's a gang of mercenaries who've kidnapped women and are hiding out in a forest, and they end up talking about a tree that's nearby that they say was used in rituals and was used to sort of wrap people's intestines around. And they plan to do the same to this young woman named Jill. But as they're trying to do it, they encounter Guts, who's kind of sleeping by the tree. And while they're talking, this mercenaries aren't happy to see him. While they're talking, the tree turns into a giant intestine monster of some sorts, haunted by the souls of the sacrifices. And the mercenaries run away, but Guts manages to kill the tree beast. And then he has a hand in returning Jill back to her village. Unfortunately, Puck is with Guts, and the town looks very unhappy to see Puck, and because Puck is an elf, and the town is sort of being haunted or antagonized by elf creatures as of late. Jill explains that they come and they consume the animals and also the people. They're eating the dogs and the cats, which is a joke that is not going to age well. But these elves are making their lives miserable, and Puck doesn't believe they're actually elves. And so Guts proceeds to sort of challenge these elves, prevent them from destroying the town, and manages to kill a few. But then the big boss elf arrives, and that's where this sort of story ends. It'll continue in the next volume. But then Miura also includes the prototype, which is an early sort of rough draft of the Berserk series that he used as an audition for getting hired for this manga writing company. And it's basically the same story as like volume 1 and 2, where it introduces us to Guts and also the terrifying forces of evil that he's fighting and is slaying as well. Not a lot is really added to this, but it is an interesting inclusion, and it shows it's very much the same as like volume 1 and 2, like same idea. So I can understand why they accepted it, or they hired Kentaro Miura. It's a very interesting volume. So yeah, that's pretty much all that's here. In terms of analysis, there's a fair bit to talk about with Volume 14. One of the main themes that Miura is working with is that of darkness. So Guts' world has been literally and figuratively plunged into darkness. Literally in that there's no sun. It seems the eclipse kind of wrecked the sun, and people aren't really getting very much of it anymore. This world has been plunged into darkness because of Griffith's choosing to take over the Godhand. Guts is also wearing black armor, so it's darkness in that kind of way. And then he's also fighting creatures of great evil. So he's figuratively sort of fighting the darkness, fighting back the forces of evil. And he's also wielding a dragon sword. He's wielding a weapon meant to fight darkness. It's enveloped all around him. There's no escaping it now. And the Skeleton Knight warns Guts that, if you fight darkness, there's a chance that you might become that darkness. A very familiar quote that people often use. Allow me to read you this quote from Berserk. "But mind this, yours is a black path through the night. When you confront those who lurk in the darkness, you also envelop yourself in it." Which is a good quote. It's a good warning to Guts. The ultimate question is, now that Guts is feeling an intense amount of rage, will that rage consume him? Will it turn him into one of the monsters that he is fighting? Because it certainly seems to have happened to the others that Guts has encountered, that their rage has consumed them, including Griffith. And so will that happen to Guts? You could make an argument that it might, and Guts' ultimate fate is to just turn into what he's fighting. But you could also say that maybe he's already that darkness, that maybe he's also a creature of great evil. He's just taking out his anger on the forces of darkness. He's focused his sort of attention on the creatures that he deems evil. But we'll still see. It does feel like Miura is kind of hinting that that's maybe a path that Guts will travel, but we still have to read along to find out. I will say that Puck's presence in this volume, it does sort of clash with with the overall tone. And like it was comic relief in the beginning, but I should have seen it then. Like you have Puck, and then you have this flashback where there's no Puck, where you see great evil happening. Like a couple volumes previous, like Casca was raped. Casca experienced great terror. There was the Eclipse. There were monsters. There were evil. There were kings wanting to sleep with their daughter. And then you get back to this, and Puck is traveling with Guts, making jokes. And there's a very light element. And maybe Puck needs to be included so that this does not feel so wholly dark and unforgiving and just like solipsistic. But Puck's presence does kind of clash in a way that can make it a bit hard to really accept, or make it hard to really get into, because like you're seeing all these dark things, and then there's just this lightness where it seems like Miura might be trying to take the piss out of the entire thing. It doesn't ruin it, but it's certainly worth noting how it does clash with it. And I think what now is a good time to ask a question, and that is, what is the worst thing that Griffith did? I think Miura is trying to get you to consider this through the previous volume as well as this volume. And so I think Griffith has done a lot of bad things, especially to the Band of the Hawk, but in particular, you could outline some things that he's done to Casca and Guts. Casca, in particular, lost her bodily autonomy. Any sense of independence has been taken away from her, because she's had her mind sort of wiped. She's had her bodily autonomy taken away. She was pregnant, and that baby turned out to be a demon. So Griffith kind of, raped her, sexually assaulted her, and then ruined any chance that she might have a child afterwards, because who knows how long this is going to affect her. It's taken away the love that she's felt for Guts, because she can no longer remember that, which is unfortunate. And then she's lost her savior. Like Griffith was a trusted confidant to her. He was the man who saved her from horrible things happening to her when she was younger. And the end result is that he's completely betrayed her trust and taken that out of her life. She no longer really has that sort of moral compass, that centerpiece to really help guide her in her life, which Griffith would already say is awful, because no one should need the help of another to accomplish things in their life. But to take that away, to take away that trusted person is an awful thing for Griffith to do. But there's still some pretty awful things that Griffith has done to Guts. Obviously, like, Guts just learns that he lost a child that he could have had with a woman that he loves. Casca and Guts could have had a great life that would have taken him away from thinking about only doing murder, only doing harm to others. And even more, like, this child might have been a second chance for him to escape that, but also to prevent the generational trauma which is washing over him from being passed down to a next generation, to sort of kind of end this cycle of self-hatred and sadness. And now he doesn't really have that, because his child was a demon and also faded away from this realm. And then he also ultimately lost a friend. Griffith was a trusted confidant as well, in addition to Casca. Maybe also a lover of sorts, but Guts saw Griffith as a potential equal, someone who he could take on the world with, and ultimately Griffith chose to betray all that for the sake of power and ambition. So Griffith has done quite an awful lot of terrible things to these characters, and I think Casca gets the worst of it, but Guts is not unscathed, and he is filled with so much rage because of that sense of betrayal. And I think Griffith wanted power, but I think there was also a sense of jealousy, because Casca and Guts were able to have a child here. Maybe Griffith didn't know about it. Maybe he did know about it. But I think there was that sense of he couldn't have what Guts and Casca had. He had to live his life in a very carefully selected way in order to rise up and obtain power. For when he sees Guts and Casca, someone who's allowed to just walk away from the Band of the Hawk, someone who is thinking of maybe starting up a relationship or something like that, I think there's a sense of inherent jealousy, of inherent anger that someone else is allowed to have Griffith might have sacrificed so much, and Guts doesn't really need to do that. So some sour grapes there, maybe. And as I mentioned before, the all-consuming rage is very interesting, but I do think it's a bit of a regression, not a terrible regression that hurts the sort of literary writing here, but more of a acceptable or it makes sense kind of character regression, where Guts was a hardened warrior, and then he met the Band of the Hawk and let love into his heart, and now he's been betrayed, and so he's kind of going back to that rage-filled self, maybe the suicide, like engaging in suicidal behavior kind of person, not caring what happens as long as he enacts violence on the demons that have hurt him, and maybe even hoping to kill Griffith. So there's a sense of regression there that is once again Griffith's fault, and there's that fear that again that rage is going to completely take him over and lead him to do some harmful things. That's yet to be seen, but we'll have to read along to find out. But that is looking like where the story is progressing. And another thing that I don't really like about this is the monsters that are present in this story. The monsters are elf bugs of some sort, bugs pretending to be elves or something like that. And it seems like a step down from what we've seen in this series so far, because in the previous volume, there were these evil demons, these horrific monsters just tearing apart the Band of the Hawk. And here you have elf bugs, vaguely insect-like creatures, which don't seem as horrific, and it really feels like Miura dropped the ball, at least in terms of the monsters. But of course, not every volume is going to necessarily have horrific demons or epic battles. Some of it's going to be character development, like you see here. But I kind of was expecting more from the villains, the terrors, the beasts that plague Guts and his friends. Anyway, those are my thoughts on Berserk Volume 14 by Kentaro Miura. A pretty solid entry into this overall series. Not as good, I would say, as Volume 13, but still pretty good. This is the Berserk series, after all. I can't wait to see where it goes from here, and I definitely am eager to see the ultimate confrontation between Guts and Griffith if that ever happens. So let me know what you thought of this in the comments below. If you read this before, you just want to comment on my review, I would love to hear from you. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so that more people can find out about the Berserk series or Miura if they don't already know. And until then, I wish you the best of luck in your weird and Dragon Slayer sword using travels. Farewell.